Welcome to Is It Really That Good? The show where we watch highly rated movies and tell you if they're really as good as everyone thinks they are. Well, last week I did Young Frankenstein, and I've been making a lot of inadvertent connections lately. Young Frankenstein was a black and white movie, and I didn't realize when I picked it that I had already done a black and white movie the week before in Schindler's List. So, coincidental connection. Speaking of coincidental connections, not being content with both of those movies being in black and white, I've decided to go back and connect to Schindler's List even more, and when I picked this movie, I didn't realize I was picking another movie that was a Spielberg-directed movie with music by John Williams, where the villains are Nazis. So, if you didn't have enough of it in Schindler's List, this is Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade has an 8.3 on IMDb and an 88% on Rotten Tomatoes, and stars Harrison Ford and Sean Connery, of course. And I'm not even going to hide it at the beginning. I love this movie, but a lot of people love this movie. 83%, 88% on Rotten Tomatoes. Is it really that good? Let's find out. Well, the acting is, of course, really that good. We know that. It's amazing. The directing is, of course, really that good. It's Spielberg. It's amazing. The music is great. And I've started to get into this trend more and more where I compare John Williams' music to other parts of John Williams' career, mostly revolving around Hook because of my irrational love for Hook. I don't know how irrational it is. Hook, 10 out of 10. But this movie, I noticed something in this movie, another comparison to Hook, but in Schindler's List, the music that John Williams did didn't completely sound John Williams-y, because that movie wasn't really whimsical and adventurous and everything. And even though the villains in this movie are Nazis, this movie is a more whimsical, adventure-y movie. And because of that, John Williams was more back to his, standard, the tone you would think he would normally go for. And so I noticed something in this movie that I'd never noticed before. And that's that the theme that he plays for the Nazis, for the villains in the movie, seems to me to be almost a combination of the Imperial March from Star Wars and the theme that he would eventually give Hook in Hook. Captain Hook's theme, I don't know, something about it. It really sounded like a combination of Captain Hook's theme from Hook, which hadn't come out yet at this point because this movie came out in '89 and Hook wouldn't come out for another 4 or 5 years. But so it sounded like that. So obviously, John Williams' just natural evolution of his career. But I thought that was interesting. I thought it was interesting that I noticed in that theme that it really sounded like, first of all, the Imperial March, which makes sense. Very militaristic, army sort of thing going on. So Imperial March from Star Wars, and Hook's theme from Hook, which is good too. Another thing I noticed in comparison specifically to Schindler's List, I don't know why I'm basing all these comparisons around Schindler's List, probably because they're so similar movies in some level, even though they're completely different genres, basically. But another thing I noticed was there's the thing in Schindler's List that I didn't really talk about in the review, where the whole movie's in black and white, and then there's the one girl with the red coat, and that blows everybody's mind. It really stands out and everything. And that never really blew my mind in the same way. I know I get the use of color in the black and white world and everything like that and everything, but this movie does an almost opposite version of that I like even better. At the end of the film, there is a knight guarding the Holy Grail. This movie is entirely in color. It's a lot of desert, so it's a lot of browns and things like that, but it's still very vivid. There's a lot of stuff in there. But the knight who's guarding the Holy Grail is filmed. It's not like a completely different film effect, but his costuming and his makeup and everything is made to make him look as if he's almost completely in black and white himself. And I think that's much cooler than the girl in the coat, personally. I thought that played that's really well. I don't know if I'd noticed that before, but because I've watched this movie a lot, but I've never really tried to watch that critically, picking up on small details, things like that, references to other movies. I did a whole bunch of stuff I noticed in this movie I'd never really noticed before. Him referencing the past movies multiple times. A lot of people really love Raiders of the Lost Ark. I like it. I think it's very good. I like this movie better. There's no way around it. There's no way to hide the fact that this is my favorite Indiana Jones movie. And that's for a couple reasons. One, Sean Connery, of course, as Indy's father, which is amazing. Two, some of the, I mean, I guess the Raiders of the Lost Ark has some of this too, but some of the gags and some of the, well, I mean, there's a scene in Raiders of the Lost Ark where he's in the duel, and then he just pulls out the pistol and shoots the guy. So there's more gags like that too, but some of the dialogue specifically, one of my favorite lines, of course, which is just completely irrelevant, is when they're trying to get into the castle in this movie, and he pretends to be a Scottish lord who's come to look at tapestries in the castle. And of course, the man who's in charge of the castle says, if he's a Scottish lord, then I am Mickey Mouse. And that's the greatest line in cinema history. Is it really the greatest line in cinema history? No, not even close, but it's great. It's a great line. Very well delivered. That's the thing. That's the thing I like about this movie. The dialogue is very convincing. It's very kind of, there's tongue-in-cheek stuff, there's some over-the-top stuff, everything, because obviously it's very, pulpy, very, actiony, but the performances all sell it absolutely perfectly. They all work in concert together. The writing, the dialogue, the performances, and like I was alluding to before with John Williams, the music backs that all up perfectly, and it's great. And I don't really know, I mean, flaws with the movie? Movie's a little over 2 hours. It doesn't really bother me. I mean, the first 15-ish or so minutes of the movie is basically a condensed Indiana Jones origin story, which I love personally. That might not be everyone's cup of tea, but I think it's great. I think it's really, really well done, and I kind of wish more movies would... I know this is the third movie in the series, so it's kind of like it's not supposed to be the origin movie. It's not like it was the origin movie and they made the origin in 15 minutes, but I kind of wish more movies would do that. I kind of wish more movies would do a condensed version of like Spider-Man, and I haven't seen Homecoming yet, but Spider-Man, we know, like, there's been like 5 Spider-Man movies, not to count all the comics and TV shows and everything. It's like, we know the origin at this point, and I don't think Homecoming really does the origin. I know it goes back later and everything. This isn't specifically a beef with Homecoming, but that's just an example I think of, that every time they reboot superhero franchises, they want to do the origin again. And again, I know this is the third movie in the series, but I think this is a great way to demonstrate that you can do an origin, a condensed origin for a figure that people already know and already know the signatures of, and do it in 15, 20 minutes, or even half an hour if you have to, but you don't have to take the whole movie, and you can do it. And it can be really, really good. So I personally really like the kind of like prequel origin beginning of the movie. I mean, the production and the set design and all the stuff and filming on location and all the... It's all great. I mean, it's all... there's nothing too out there to say about it, really, for the most part. It's all... If you haven't seen the movie, I would say definitely go see the movie. Really, I love this movie personally. And the villains, there was one moment, I will say the one flaw I can think of, had to do with the villains. And the villains' acting is good, but there's multiple villains, and their acting is good, but it's not as good as the heroes' acting for the most part. And one line in particular really stood out that was kind of weird, that I kind of wrote off, because I love this movie. But if I'm being honest with myself, it was a really, really strange line delivery. And that's when there's this diary that Indy's father has that they have to find and everything. And there's the map pages in the diary. And they have the diary, but they don't have the map, the villains in this case. And the villain, one of the main villains, for some reason, has this really weird line delivery where they're like, all the other villains in the scene are like really angry and like trying to find, the diary and the map and everything, and they're like, yeah, passionate and everything. And then he just does this like really, really strange, like forced fast line delivery where he's just like, we need the pages to the map. We gotta find the map. Go get the map. And I'm just like, what? It's really strange. He just kind of like suddenly like blurts it out really like staccato-y and like, so that's one weird thing that I noticed, which it doesn't bother me all that much, but just being out there, being honest and everything, it's just like that was kind of like, why? Strange choice to make in that moment, but other than that, I mean, there's a couple of characters who I wish had more screen time, really. I know that there's a lot of side characters in this, that have just pop up here and there. There's like, I mean, it's supposed to be focused on Indy and his father, which is good. There's like 2 or 3 other like side, kind of sidekicks who pop up here and there. And they're fine and they're good. Some of them I wish were expanded on more, but again, that would probably have made the movie longer, and I think the movie's pretty good as it is. I don't think it had to be longer. So at the end of the day, is it really that good? Yeah. I mean, for me personally, if the 8.3 is where IMDb has it and that's how a lot of people feel, I think it's better than that. I personally really enjoy this movie. I don't, it's not like my favorite movie of all time. I don't know if I'd give it like a 10 out of 10 or anything like that, but I'd say like, yeah, I could give this like an 8.5, 9 out of 10, in that range. I thoroughly enjoy this movie. I think it's an incredibly well put together movie. Everybody who was involved on it built really well on what they had learned in the previous 2 Indiana Jones movies, and it just played out really well. So I guess that's it for this week. It's just pretty fast, but it's such a good movie. There's not that much to get into, really. So watch it for yourself and tell me what you think. And as per usual, tell me what you want to see next week, and I'll see you then.